everybody. Welcome to Colin Podcasting About Real Estate. This is Colin G. Murphy, and we're on show 27. My guest today is Clint Wetherill, and I had a great chat to him about building a large property management firm and the advice he has for long-term investors. So unlike a lot of property managers, Clint is actually a very experienced investor and a property flipper in his own right. He owns a personal portfolio made up of single-family homes, condos, apartments and commercial office buildings, and he owns a property management business with over 750 doors. So very experienced guy with a lot of years in real estate, and there's a lot of actionable information in this show, especially for landlords that want to know a little bit more about how they can deal with their tenants a little better or deal with their property managers better. We talk about how Clint started out flipping properties at nights and weekends, and after working all day long. We talked about his transition to property management during the Great Recession for the simple reason that they couldn't sell houses anymore, so they decided to start renting them, and then started renting the properties for friends and colleagues, and just built a huge property management business from that, quite organically and quite accidentally, which is very interesting. We talk about the advantages big firms have over small property management firms, of which there are many. We talk about what sets apart really good managers from ordinary or bad ones, what's involved in placing a great tenant, what types of tenants are most likely to stay long term. That's what everybody wants, is a tenant that lives there for several years. There's a few things more annoying than having people move in a couple of times a year. We talk about how investors can minimize their maintenance issues. We also talk a little bit about next year and the potential spike we might see in evictions and foreclosures throughout the country. So a really good chat with an interesting guy. I think you're going to enjoy it. And just before we head over, as always, don't forget to check out my website, colininvestments.com, COLIN investments.com. You'll find all the new podcasts there. I've recently revamped that section of the website. So you'll find all the other podcasts, the videos, the audio, some other videos I put up there as well. You'll find free reports that I wrote a little earlier this year. You'll find links where you can find me on social media. You'll find links where you can schedule a quick 20-minute call with me. I always free up several slots a week to chat to people about their real estate journeys, and just ask me any questions you want about whatever you're doing. I'm happy to do that. And yeah, so check it out, colininvestments.com. But that's enough about me and my website. Let's head on over and have a good chat to Clint Wetherill. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the show, Clint. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Colin. How are you? I appreciate you having me.
I'm awesome. I'm here in sunny Florida. I think you're where, in cold Indianapolis now, or Indiana? Where are you?
We got spoiled with some warm weather the last couple of weeks in Indianapolis, but we are trending towards the norm right now, and it's pretty chilly outside, and it's only going to get worse. So rub it in a little bit. I'm not looking forward to it.
All right, will do. So listen, Clint, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name's Clint Wetherill. I'm originally from Southern Indiana, so I've been born and raised Hoosier my entire life. From very small town. Went to Indiana University and graduated from the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. Also played in all of the athletic team bands while I was there. So I was a drummer. So that's a little interesting side note for me. I'm big into golf. Whenever I'm not working, I'm either watching or trying to play golf. But after college, I went to corporate America. I worked in sales for a while. It was never really my passion. Started into real estate on the side, and it turned into a full-time career. And then along the way, got married, and I've got two beautiful princesses. I've got a 2-year-old as of yesterday, and a 4-year-old, both girls. Awesome. Love being a girl dad, so that's what it's all about for me these days.
It's a fun age, 2 and 4. So tell me, was real estate in your family at all, Clint, or what were they doing? What did your parents do, or your relatives? Were they in real estate or entrepreneurial businesses?
It was not. My father was a small town attorney.
Okay.
And I'm from a town of 2,500. So, he did everything from real estate practice, doing like the typical title company type work,
Mm-hmm.
criminal to divorce to you name it. You're kind of a one-stop shop whenever you're a small town attorney. And my mother was a nurse, so no, real estate wasn't really in my family,
Mm-hmm.
but it was something that I always kind of had a passion for, or at least was, I should say, a curiosity about whenever I was younger, and especially through college. But no, it's something that I kind of started into on my own. My dad was very interested in me becoming a lawyer and moving back to the small town with him, because I have an older brother that he's been there, took
Mm-hmm.
over my dad's small town law practice. But no, law was not for me, and really the small town wasn't for me either.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
uh, kind of branched out on my own and grew slowly over time, and the rest is history.
And so was there a particular, book or friend who was doing real estate that got you interested? I mean, what was your first kind of real estate deal? What did it involve? Were you in college? Was it just after college?
No, after I graduated college, I went to work for an office supply company and
Mm-hmm.
was doing sales, and really loved it. I loved the people that I worked with. It just wasn't the path that I wanted to be on for the rest of my life.
Sure.
So I tell everybody about my real estate journey is it's one of extreme luck, because in 2001, 2, 3, 4, it was a
Mm-hmm.
very unique time to be in real estate. There wasn't nearly as many people in real estate at that time.
Sure.
Money was extremely easy to come by. And in many cases, and especially in the case of Indianapolis, foreclosures were everywhere. And a lot of the foreclosures at that time were houses that were built in, say, 1998 to 2005. There
Oh,
was
wow.
neighborhoods that kind of went up overnight in Indianapolis. Um, so anyhow, my first real estate experience was while I had my full-time job. I
Mm-hmm.
bought a foreclosure that was just a couple of years old,
Mm-hmm.
that I did all of the work myself. I put my painting clothes on and painted a 1,700 square foot home in my free time, and basically contracted out the carpet and bought new appliances, and just a couple of odds and ends, and then flipped it for a very, very small profit at the time. But that was my first real estate experience. In the beginning, I truly wanted to be a home flipper. I thought that was just so sexy, to buy something low and fix it up and then
Sure.
sell it higher. And I think a lot of people fall into that because it's so popular to see the flip this house type shows on TV. Much different than the flip this house TVs that you see, or excuse me, TV shows that you see here in
Well, the
Indianapolis.
reality is a little different. Yeah.
I mean, the profit margins are extremely tighter and smaller here in Indianapolis. But anyhow, I learned a lot on the first deal, and then that carried on into deals 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond.
And you were
And
doing these part-time at that stage, just on your spare time, weekends, evenings, that kind of stuff?
yeah, and I had zero life for a couple of years. I think the my biggest quality that I got from my father whenever he was still with us was, I've always been a very, very hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working 8 to 5, 8 to 6 at my day job, would go home and eat and throw my painting clothes on and work till midnight, 1 o'clock uh,
Wow.
in the morning. And then I'd do it all weekend. And I really did that for 2 years straight, with very little social life. But the thing is, it's like,
I think you can only do that when you're in your 20s. I don't know if you have the
there's no
energy
way
to
I
do
could do it
that in your
in my
30s,
40s. No,
40s. That's a young man's game, and it's,
correct.
but yeah, that's
But
tough going. But what good
I
lessons.
loved
And
it. I loved
yeah.
it. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'd take a radio and I'd rock out while I was in there painting the walls. It was a lot of fun, and but then eventually I'd saved enough and had enough success where I decided, you know what, I'm going to quit the day job.
Yeah.
And I did that in 2004. 4 and
Okay.
completely went exclusively on my own at that time.
Why were there so many foreclosures in 2002, 3, 4 in these 5-year-old homes? Because, you know, the economy was booming. Why were people losing houses a few years after they bought them in when there wasn't a recession?
It's a great question. It was very interesting. You know, Indianapolis has a highway that goes around basically the downtown. It's called 465. And around
Hmm.
465, you have these township areas. And the township areas, we kind of just refer to them as that, is because they're more your family type neighborhoods,
Hmm.
uh, you know, better schools. And there was a lot of vacant land at you know, back in the 90s and 2000s, where these home builders would build these 3, 4, 5, 6, 700 you know, home developments all around that 465 loop in Indianapolis.
Hmm.
Well, what would happen, there was a lot, you know, and we know what happened with the Great Recession and the mortgage meltdown. You
Yep.
know, part of kind of what led to that with a few builders here in Indianapolis, and I know it happened in different places across the country, is the sales tactics were a little shaky during those times with a few home builders. You know, in our society, people buy things based off of payment, not necessarily investment, but everyone is very payment driven.
Yeah.
These home builders at that time were selling based off of payment, and taxes, the property taxes weren't assessed yet on these homes.
Hmm.
So
Right.
now, if you sold someone, say, for example, just throwing numbers out, that you could buy this 2,200 square foot home and you could have a $850 payment on it. Well, once the taxes were then assessed, that $850 payment could balloon up to, say, 1,100, 1,200. And you saw a lot of foreclosures in these new neighborhoods and homes that
Wow.
really didn't have much wrong with them. You know, they were mainly paint and carpet foreclosures. We had one particular home builder. It was a very big home builder back in those times, where they were ran out of Indiana, and they're no longer allowed to do business, you know, in Indiana, based off of those sales tactics. So it was a really weird time for real estate. Like I said, there wasn't a ton of people in the marketplace like there is now.
Sure.
So there
Hmm.
were hundreds of these homes, which, you know, I only had the ability to do one or two at a time, you know, back in
Hmm.
those days. But it was very easy to pick up these foreclosures that didn't need a lot. Now, the flip side of that, you know, I cautioned about the profits that these homes produced back in those days.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of how much you'd put into it, what you'd sell it for, what your net profit might be in an acceptable deal?
Sure. And I used to advertise this because I had my real estate license, and I started acquiring clients that were wanting to do the same thing that I was doing.
Hmm.
So I would say a bad deal, I was making $5,000, and a great deal, I was making 30. Um, you know,
And what were
and
the sales prices for these homes?
the after repair value, you know, prices that we were selling them at was somewhere in the 120 to 135 range back in those days. And
Okay,
it's crazy
130.
because you can't find anything. You know, these were more your starter neighborhoods. You know, starter homes now are, you know, a quarter million and above.
Sure.
But, you know, back then it was a different ball game. So yeah, that was kind of my transition, you know, into expanding into real estate, was where I had a handful, call it maybe 10 clients, that I would help them find a home, and then I would be the general contractor that would fix up the home for them, and
Oh,
then
okay.
I would resell it. Basically, I wouldn't charge them anything to resell it, just basically cover my costs on the sales. I would discount it drastically because I wanted that machine to continue, you know, to buy and fix up. And
So
uh,
where did you make your money if they owned the property and you didn't collect commission on the resale? Where were you making your money?
well, I was making it whenever they purchased it, and, you know, a lot of times back then they were HUD foreclosures, and
Uh-huh.
HUD foreclosures back back, you know, in 2000 through 2005, 6, 7, they were paying 5% real estate commission, so you made pretty decent
Gotcha.
money on it then. And I did charge to be the general contractor, as well. But then whenever I would resell it for them, I would do it for 1% on the listing side. So I wasn't
Okay.
doing it for
So you got a
absolutely
commission on the purchase side, you got a fee for being the contractor, and then you covered your costs plus maybe a
correct.
few hundred on the resale, and and you were still doing a couple yourself on the side as well.
Yeah, I was, it started out just doing maybe a couple a year, but within the first 2 or 3 um, years, I was up to where I was doing about 10 a year, myself.
Nice.
Hmm.
And so what year did you first start working for yourself? When did you quit the corporate job and start, just being out on your own?
Yeah, completely solo was 2004. And
Okay.
I was really scared. It was really scary time. I had a company car with my day job. I had, company insurance, company cell phone, um, a lot of stability.
Yeah.
But
I
but
like
it
that
just
you were
wasn't
doing it
right.
yourself though for quite a while. You were doing all the work, all those, working all evening to midnight. You were making sure it worked. You didn't just do one house and then quit your job. You did quite a few over a year or two, it sounds like. So you're lowering your risk that way. But what early struggles or early successes do you recall from that, first kind of year or so when you were quitting and giving up all those kind of perks and just being on your own?
Yeah, in the very beginning, I'd say that I didn't really have a whole heck of a lot of struggles other than just being scared to death. But
Less stressful anyway on its own.
but also I didn't have a ton of successes, either. It was something that you learn the process, kind of slowly. I guess my first biggest struggle was scalability, because I went from painting and doing all this stuff myself. What was the next move? And even then it was very difficult to find quality contractors. It's almost impossible now,
Sure.
my biggest struggle in the beginning was scaling to going from doing a couple homes a year to doing 10, and what did that look like to get there? A
Hmm.
lot of it, I mean, it sounds silly. A lot of it was, it would take me a month to paint a house.
Yeah.
And I ended up finding a crew that went from me taking a month to me finding a crew that did it in 2 days.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was a big struggle, was just getting through that. Because back in those days they had 100% investment property financing. It was bananas.
Wow.
So the financing portion back then was very easy. In many cases, when our property taxes are paid in arrears, so it's great when you buy, you actually get a credit on the property taxes when you buy a home. So a lot of times, whenever I would purchase a house, I was getting a check at closing, for $2, $3, $4,000, for the proration of taxes that you would get back. And keep in mind, a
Because
lot of
you
the
weren't buying these in sheriff sales or foreclosure auctions. You were buying these from your kind
HUD.
of
Most
HUDs,
of them
kind
were
of,
HUD foreclosures.
yeah, HUD foreclosures, which, as you know, you can get financing for, and that's amazing. You were actually buying them. There's a property for whatever 100,000, and you might get a financing for 101,000 on it or something.
Correct. It was just very interesting times. Like I, uh, I wish I could go back to it, because I had the world's greatest job back in those days. But you
Well, now you
know,
got the knowledge to 10x it.
that,
So
that,
yeah,
that,
that'd be
that,
lovely.
that's true. But I kind of figured out the formula. Everything had just went to an online bidding process for HUD foreclosures. And on Mondays around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, everything that was in owner occupant status and did not sell would finally go into investor status around 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. So then on
Hmm.
Monday, I would go out and I would look at all of these foreclosures, and I'd bid on it so many times. I had figured out that if you bid 88% of list price and you did not get outbid by somebody else,
Hmm.
that you would get the property. It's much different now. It's not like this anymore, but back then that's how it was. So, on these homes that were newer, I got to the point where I could look and see, it's going to cost me $12,000 to fix this up, I kind of knew what I was going to make, the day that I got the property. There wasn't a ton of surprises. If you buy a house today that was built in 1950, you're going to have so many different surprises that, it's hard to gauge, profit. But back then it was extremely easy to, you kind of knew your success before you even started.
Yeah, didn't really need to replace anything except maybe a couple of appliances, right? I mean, water heater, roof, AC, furnaces, cabinets, bathrooms, they're all good.
And now those days are over. The old Cinderella song, "You don't know what you got till it's gone." I was so young and naive back then. I had no idea that was something that would be a flash in the pan. I thought that that's how real estate worked, and that's how I was going to live my career out for the next 20 or 30 years. But the reality was, it was something that was going to be around for 5-6 years, and then it would be gone.
Okay, so when did you make the transition then, Clint, to becoming more of a property manager than a fix and flipper? When did that happen?
Well, it was completely by accident and never intended. So, I say that I'm a property manager by accident. Like I said, I had a catalog of clients that I was helping them do the same thing, and I thought, that was the model that we were going to continue. But then, starting in 2006, and then especially in 2007 and through 2010, houses stopped selling. We know what happened with our economy during that time. So it was evolve or die at that point. The model that we were living by for the last 5 or 6 years was dead, and our for sale signs got switched out for rent signs. And
Gotcha.
it was one of those things where I said, well, how hard could it be, to be a property manager? The reality is, that mentality hit me upside the head, and it's still hitting me upside the head today. That it's extremely difficult to being a property manager. But literally, I started at property one because of the Great Recession, and
Because you couldn't sell it.
because we couldn't sell it. And now we're roughly 750 properties that we have under management. But it was
Wow.
a very, very slow growth process. Never really advertised our property management company to bring on mass properties at any one time. So I think that slow growth is really what helped us build what we have today, is because we kind of just adapted over time. We've got an amazing maintenance staff, and we've got amazing office staff that people that try to grow too fast, you just can't pick up that quality of staff
No.
all at once. It's something that can be done over time. So
how many staff does a property management company that has 750 doors require?
well, our office staff is roughly 10.
Okay.
And we have a sister company. Zuluscape is our property management company. Realty Wealth Advisors is our real estate brokerage that buys houses. And I know that you'd had a podcast with Scott that he talked probably a little bit more about the Realty Wealth side. But on the Zuluscape side of things, we have a staff of 10. Consists of mainly licensed people, which I'm very proud of. That's something that you're really required to do, is be a company of licensed real estate professionals to be a property management company. But the reality is, not many people actually operate that way. But then outside of the 10 office staff, we have several full-time maintenance staff that are basically for just maintenance, like light maintenance calls. But then we have a massive list of subs that we have worked with for many, 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 many years. In most cases, I've been working with the same subs, and I say, subs meaning, our HVAC people or plumbing or electrical or some finished carpenters. Most of the people that we've worked with have been with us for over a decade now.
That's brilliant. So, I mean, a lot of the property management companies I've worked with over the years, they're a lot smaller. They generally have anything from 50 doors to 250 doors. You know, it's probably the majority of them. What would you say are some of the kind of systems and processes the bigger guys have, that the small people don't have?
Well, I think the maintenance is a big thing. I've already touched on that, a little bit. It's just really hard for someone to say, I'm going to open up a property management company and have the resources that we
Sure.
have. And part of those resources, the pricing that I can get for anything, there's no way anybody can touch it. And that's just
Mm-hmm.
because, the volume that we do. So, and with the volume, I mean, it just means that we are able to offer, better pricing. And being a big size, offers us a lot of flexibility. Also we truly try to come alongside of all of our clients. It's easy when everything is going right, and 90% of the time things are going right. But it's the 5% of the time, 10% of the time where there's an issue. And being the size that we are, and being also a company that manages properties that we sold with Realty Wealth Advisors that we brought on, as under our permanent management umbrella, we stand behind our homes, which gives us a little bit of flexibility to stand behind the product, meaning we cover things on our properties that you probably would have a very hard time doing if you were a smaller operation.
Gotcha. So, I found you can actually, as an investor, you can get away with a lot of bad investment decisions if you work with a great property manager. I've found that for sure. You can buy a very average house, and a great property manager can turn it into an awesome rental, even though you didn't work out your numbers very well at the beginning. So what do you think it is that sets apart really good managers from ordinary or poor ones? Because obviously it's very easy to be a property manager if the tenants pay on time and never call you about anything. That's obviously pretty straightforward, but the good managers and the great managers set themselves apart from when things go wrong. So what is it, that makes the great ones different?
Well, it's systems, I think, is what it boils down to. And for us now, it's more of repeating the system that we have in place over and over again. 10 years ago, our system wasn't exactly what it is today. We've evolved
Mm-hmm.
over time and perfected that system. Part of the systems are, technology obviously is a big thing that's adapted over my 15 years as a property manager. Um,
Sure.
90% of our rent payments are paid via auto bank deduct that we set up at time of lease signing.
Okay.
So, that's something that, you spend a little bit of time in the beginning to ensure the fact that your owners, are getting paid. Ease of payment is huge. And, being able to have that with technology was a huge game changer.
Mm-hmm.
The other, the marketing, our software markets to over 60 real estate websites. The reality is there's only about 10 that really matter, but it does go to over 60. So the coverage that we get for our clients from a marketing standpoint is just phenomenal. But then, like the other smaller pieces of our systems, where we do a 4-month inspection after a tenant moves in. We go out to the
Okay.
property. We do a 4-month inspection where we take over at least 24 pictures is the minimum that we take, on our 4-month inspection. And then we also do a lease renewal inspection 60 days prior to lease expiration. It just, we wait
Nice.
4 months. We wait 4 months on the first one, so a tenant can get in the property, live there. We can see how they actually live. We don't want to go on week 2 because they haven't had enough time to live in the house and make it their own. But at 4 months, we can make sure that the tenant is taking care of your property. And then prior to lease renewal, we want to make sure that the tenant is taking care of the property to where we will renew, the lease. Other systems, we have spring and fall HVAC.
Mm-hmm.
maintenance that we do, which is a big deal. Other things, as far as trying to secure a good tenant, our leasing application, platform is very strenuous.
Right.
Criminal background, national eviction search, verification of previous residency, and verification of employment. So it's keeping those systems in check. And then, lastly, his experience. I don't
Yeah.
know what Scott and I have done within our businesses that we've been rewarded with such great people, but whatever it is, I'm very, very humbled and grateful for. We don't have much turnover.
Yeah,
Our
because a lot of property managers do. I see it all the time. You get someone come in, they're great, but they're gone after 6 months, and you keep an eye on someone over a couple of years, and yeah, there seems to be a lot of turnovers of property managers.
most of our staff has been with us 5+ years. I've got one particular gentleman that's been with me for 14 years. Um, I don't know. We offer full benefits, retirement, healthcare, to our
Hmm.
employees, which is a little unique for the real estate world. But we've just been blessed with a lot of great people, licensed real estate professionals, and I think that separates us from a lot of people. Man, we got a really cool family that we've got to
That's
work on
awesome.
properties together with.
And I want to ask your advice that you can give to investors out there that manage their own properties, because there are a lot of investors that have maybe 2 to 5 rentals and they just manage them themselves to save on the property management fees. I mean,
Yeah.
what upfront measures do you recommend they take to make sure they don't, accidentally rent their properties out to a bad tenant, or what kind of general advice do you have for them to, not mess it up or not let it take over their lives?
Well, I don't recommend self-managing, very often. The reason being um, is there's a really unique dynamic as a good property manager that I can use to manage your property. And let's just say that your tenant is slow paying their rent, falling a little bit behind. We as a company can position the owner as the bad guy because they are not in the picture whatsoever. Their lease is
Uh-huh.
with us, the property manager. And whenever we're talking to a tenant, we can say, look, Mr. Owner is concerned and they want their money. And it's my job to be able to do this. There's nothing I can do. Don't put us in this situation. We're in a unique, spot to where we can still play the good guy, but yet force a really strong hand, on a person's property, which I think is very paramount.
Yeah.
So, also, um, if you're not local, you're really going to struggle to find the pricing that we can get our customers for anything that's needed on the house.
Yeah.
So in most cases, unless you're local and you're just wanting to show up at the house and manage it yourself, I can do it for a lot cheaper than you can do it, for yourself. But I think one of the biggest things for people managing their own properties is it's really easy for homeowners to get emotional, and
Hmm.
tenants would call with some story, and the situation happened within their family, and I can't pay rent, and I don't want to sound callous because I've got a big heart as well, but
Mm.
being in the situation that I'm in, representing the homeowner, the tenant, I'm sorry, if you don't pay, you don't stay, period.
Yeah, no, I'm
I'm
totally
sorry,
with you on that.
I'm
If
sorry about
someone's
your
fallen
situation.
on hard times, you should be tell them ask your friends and family for money. They're the people you turn to in hard times. You don't turn to your landlord
Correct.
for a loan on hard times.
So I know homeowners sometimes have a tough time in that situation, um, and I'm gonna sound callous. We don't.
Hmm.
I'm required by the state of Indiana to maximize my client's bottom line on their house. That's per the Indiana Real Estate Commission.
Hmm.
So that tenant's not paying, and I'm not hounding them to make their payment. then I'm not doing my job legally. So that's kind of the unique dynamic for a good property management company, that they use that leverage. It's
Yep.
something that we really stress within our office. And hey, there's other good property management companies out there outside of us that know how to do this. But the scary thing is there's lots of bad ones. I mean, people open up
Oh
property
yeah.
management companies all the time, and it's people claim to be experts, and it's a very challenging business. We got to where we're at because we grew very slowly and learned a lot of lessons over the near 20 years that we've been doing it, and that just separates us from most other people.
It is. And look, it's no different than the fix and flip space. There's a lot of people that are terrible fix and flippers that are doing awful renovations with all sorts of crazy, unpermitted work and
Right.
additions, and storm comes through and half your renovation is going to be gone because stuff wasn't pinned down to the ground properly or stuff wasn't done right. I mean,
Right.
it's just, and it's no different in, there's a lot of terrible property managers out there that'll put a bad tenant in and manage it badly afterwards. So you're right. So let me ask you, what about, I mean, let's talk about maintenance briefly, because that's obviously the bane of a lot of landlords' existence, that you're getting stung for 400 here and 500 here and 1,000 there. What are the most common maintenance issues you come across, and what measures can landlords take to minimize them? Obviously there's always going to be some stuff that you deal with, but is there some kind of general advice you can tell people to look out for to manage or to minimize the maintenance long term?
Yeah, it's hard. And you have some tenants that have a leaky sink, and they've got they just take the authority to fix it themselves. Or they just take care of their property a little differently. And then you've got other tenants that a light bulb goes out, and then they're calling the property manager to come fix it. And you have everything in between. It's just a really big mixed bag. One thing that we did many years ago, I mean, probably 12 plus years ago,
Uh-huh.
is we put a minimum charge in our lease that the tenant is responsible for. So if there's a maintenance item, then the tenant, in their lease, it says that they're responsible for the first $50.
I like
Now,
that.
now the reality is that's not imposed all of the time. If someone calls up and there's a legitimate maintenance concern, then that's something that is not imposed. The reason why that's there is for the person that calls for the light bulb, or calls for the battery in the smoke detector, or calls for something silly that they should just be
Yeah.
doing themselves, is then that gives us the leverage. Leverage is the key word again in property management, to say, yeah, we can come out and replace that battery
Yeah,
in your
we
smoke
can tighten
detector.
that towel holder on your bathroom.
Correct. It's going to cost you $50. And then that eliminates that. And there's a case to be said that maybe the $50 should even be 100. But you're not looking to get one over on the tenants, but you are looking to position yourself to where that tenant needs to take ownership and treat that home as if it's theirs. So I think that's something that's really a good thing to do. Then trying to minimize maintenance, those inspections that I spoke about earlier, that's another area that, we utilize to try to minimize,
Hmm.
maintenance. It helps us get ahead of it, a little bit. But then the HVAC is always one of your biggest issues. So,
Yeah.
we have it in our lease to where, it's their responsibility for changing out the furnace filters. The reality is it's hard to police that and make sure that they're always doing that. We send out notices to remind them to do that. But having those spring and fall services on HVAC is another big thing. And then
Hmm.
also, keep in mind, a lot of the houses that we manage are homes that we used to own at one time.
True.
Uh,
That you've renovated.
and and we renovated them, and we're very strenuous on our renovation process, which I know Scott has talked a little bit about on a previous podcast, so I won't get into it a
Hmm.
whole lot. But when our clients have these homes, they start in a very good spot, which would be something that I recommend to anyone if they're hiring a property manager. Hand that home over to the property manager in a good spot. Don't hand over a house that that you know has 24 deferred maintenance items that could pop up. Because what
Yeah.
happens is, then you put a tenant in there, that tenant's not going to stay because there's all these items that have come up. Then you're going to have another turn that you're going to have to be responsible for. You're going to have periods of vacancy. Starting out with a very quality product is so important in real estate investing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, overdo it and just, make everything just
Yeah, you
like
don't
the
need
Taj
crystal
Mahal.
chandeliers and stainless
Correct.
steel appliances, but yeah, it's got to be good
Fresh,
quality if you
clean,
want a
neat,
good quality
and
tenant.
working. Right.
Yeah, I guess that's it. If you want a great tenant, you got to give them a good house because, I mean, what is, in your experience, what do tenants really want? What makes them stay in a property long term? Because that's the holy grail, to rent it out to somebody and have them stay there for many years. What do they want? What keeps them there?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, fresh, clean, and neat. And we only manage, we always say, good properties and good neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So, schools is a big thing because, the lion's share of our tenants, um, have families and are in family neighborhoods.
Sure.
So, a lot of times, a lot of our tenants are looking for a long-term place to stay because they have kids and they're wanting to keep the kids in the same school district. So we're very selective on the areas that we are, and the areas kind of dictate the length of stay. If you get
Mm-hmm.
into some of the transitional areas in Indianapolis that we simply don't manage properties, you just don't see long-term tenants staying in those properties, nor can you really find a good quality tenant. It's just the pool of quality just shrinks drastically. So,
Sure.
we really concentrate on those family, type neighborhoods. But then, as far as, desirability of a home, you want a nice fresh coat of paint goes a long way in keeping a tenant happy the day they move in,
Yeah.
um, and it goes a long way.
Yeah, and I guess just responding quickly to stuff that's not working properly. If there's no hot water in this bathroom, or if this hob in the stove isn't working, or whatever. If something's not working, you got to get on it quickly to keep good tenants in the same
Correct.
property. Otherwise, they're going to leave, and you'll be replaced with a different type of tenant if you're that type of
Absolutely.
landlord. So let's pivot a little bit, Clint, to earlier this year when COVID turned everybody's year upside down. How did your staff and your tenants and your landlords respond and get through that initial kind of panic and uncertainty?
Well, the initial panic really sucked. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It was, I mean, I was scared, and our owners were exceptionally scared. And I literally stayed on the phone um, almost every waking minute because, we have a lot of clients on the West Coast. We got the 3 hour time difference. And, a lot of our owners were calling. So, we went to working remote. We were scared to death that we were really going to get hit hard from a rental payment standpoint.
Yeah.
So we started trying to communicate with our tenants, and then we were shocked at the record rent collection that we received April, May, and June. So in April, we set a rent collection record as a company that we had
Wow.
never collected as much rent as we had ever that we did in April. And then we broke that record in May, and then we broke that record in June.
It's
Uh,
incredible.
so it was amazing, and it's really, it's hard for me to pinpoint exactly why that is. Um, I mean, it was,
It's not
it
what
was
you expect in the middle of a
no,
shutdown and a
no,
huge recession and a spike in unemployment. You're not thinking, oh, okay, well, I'll probably have record rent collections. It's not,
correct.
they don't
So
normally go hand in
we
hand.
were shocked. We were shocked. We did send out a lot of notices to our tenants saying, hey, it's
Mhm.
you still do have to pay your rent. You don't know if it was part of the government stimulus. or if it was just the heightened awareness that people had, because of everything. But it was amazing. Like my biggest challenge was the fear that our customers had, and then that
Did you
fear.
have some of your customers looking to sell or panic sell, or have to
Yep.
talk them down from that?
Yep. Yeah, we did, and we had some that did. Not a lot, but most of our clients are long term, which is what we preach. This is what
Sure.
Scott and I do for our own selves. But then in June, it started to kind of crest, and I would say that we are back to more of like a normal rent collection. And also, I mean, we everything rented. Like we literally had nothing available for rent for 100 days,
Wow.
where like everything was gone,
Hmm.
like that. So it was just
And do you
it's hard
see
to
that
explain.
continuing next year? Do you see any spike potentially in evictions or a spike in foreclosures in your market next year? What's your
Yeah.
what's your take on that?
Yeah, we're going to see a spike. Now, we across our 750 homes, we have a couple of situations, where you can't evict, and it's an issue. But when I say a couple, I literally mean two. So I think that's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, you're going to see whenever landlords can truly evict, you're going to see a rise in that. I think it'll be more hit with properties that we don't typically manage. Some of the lower priced rentals, you'll see a huge spike in evictions on those. For us, you probably won't see much of a difference in evictions. Like I said, we've got two that we're wanting to get out, but the other, as far as foreclosures, yeah, it's got to go up. I mean, there's hardly any.
Yep.
Um, the inventory of distressed real estate is not only the least I've ever seen, it's the least I've ever seen by a tremendous amount.
Hmm.
I talked about HUD foreclosures, and that's how I got my start into real estate. Um, and I used to surf through hundreds of foreclosures just in Marion County, where Indianapolis is. Where this
Yeah.
was a couple of weeks back, there were 23 HUD foreclosures in the entire state of Indiana. 23 in the entire
Wow.
state, and like I said, I got into this business going through hundreds within one county. So yeah, you're going to see foreclosures go up. I'm hoping so. I mean, we also buy foreclosures
Yeah.
and invest real estate, so we're kind of counting on that. Um, but
It's just hard to say
yeah,
when it's going to happen. Is it going to be January? Is it going to be April? Is it going to be June? I mean, I would have, if you'd asked me in April, May, I would have thought we'd have been seeing it now, but we're not
correct.
in Tampa either, and not anywhere that I know. I know the kind of volumes in October were about a third of what they were like this time last year, and about 15 to 20% of what they were in 2014,
Yep.
2015.
I couldn't agree more. And it's gotten to the point where we're in such unprecedented times that I don't even know how to even speculate when that's going to be. We it's bananas. It's crazy. We're going backwards to a lot more shutdowns here in Indianapolis right now. They just announced a bunch of mandates yesterday. So it's really
It's
hard to
hard to
say.
predict more than, yeah. So, I mean, what types of opportunities are you looking at as an investor in 21 and 2021? What are you hoping to be able to do? Because I know you've got a pretty decent portfolio now, right, Clint?
I do. I think Scott talked about it on his podcast. We've built several apartment buildings, and we've got some larger commercial stuff that him and I have done as investors. Um, but really right now, our main focus is probably just to continue to find the deals that we can find, which
Mm-hmm.
is 80% less than what the number of deals that we used to do.
And where,
Just
where are you
because,
finding them? Is it wholesalers? Are you doing direct mail? Where are you getting the the
We
deals
do
now?
not do direct mail. We do have relationships with practically every big wholesaler in town, and they know that if there's a particular, they know what houses we like,
Sure.
and yeah, they come to us. But we're still hot and heavy in the MLS. We're the first people to any distressed real estate that the MLS kicks out. Um, but those are our two big avenues, because the sheriff's sale used to be a big place for us to acquire properties, and there isn't anything available, so we
Yep.
don't waste our time with that right now. We're not building anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
The building materials have went so bananas, and there's shortages everywhere that I'm not really into building anything. So I don't know. I'm in an area where I'm not on the sidelines completely, but I'm very closely and cautiously watching, everything. We're still able to do what we've always done on a
Mm.
much smaller scale. We used to do 10 to 15 homes a month. Um, we're doing 3 to 7, homes a month, now.
Sure.
And
Okay.
that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, it's kind of a unique time. In the commercial side of things, people are buying at such crazy cap rates. I mean, there's just nothing really out there that I'm interested in.
What are they doing? What cap rates are people accepting
I've
these
seen
days?
people buying stuff at 5, cap rates. I'm
It's
not
crazy.
interested.
And that's a
I'm not
full
interested
occupancy as well,
like
which
that.
is, not
So
always
how do
going
you
to
cash
happen.
flow that? I just so we're I'm not saying that there's not something that we would find that we would jump on, but really concentrating on our business and keeping everything as tidy as we can, and improving our operations where we can. That's where our main focus is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I still look to build my own personal portfolio, a few homes at a time. I've got LLCs for each of my girls, and I had a home a year too. Um, you
Awesome.
know, 2 different LLCs. So a couple homes a year in each one of those. But yeah,
And do
we're
you
doing great.
finance those with a regular mortgage? You're just trying to
I
pay them
do.
off over 20 years so that when they're in university, they're kind of almost free and clear?
It's almost like you read my mind. That's so my silly dream um, is that once my girls graduate college, that their portfolio of real estate that is paid for will be theirs to do whatever they want with, whether they want to be in real estate like dad, or if nothing else, they get a good start into their life. That's kind of my dream, to give to them. So that's like my biggest passion as far as investing is the adding the one home per year to each of my girls, companies that I've set up, for them. But
That's awesome.
yeah, my
Happy
4-year-old
now.
says she's gonna go come work with daddy when she gets older, and I I'm not gonna force her into that, but daddy sure would love that.
That'd be nice. No, my boy's got a soccer game this Sunday in an area where I've got a bunch of houses under renovation. So he's after the game, we're doing a tour and we're going to do the rounds, and he's coming with me, and
That's awesome,
it's going to be fun.
and it's good experience.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a really good experience, and make sure you get those girls involved in a bit of work when they're a little older, instead of just
Oh,
giving it
don't
to them on a silver plate when they're 21.
don't worry. Work ethic is a big thing for me. That was my dad's thing. Whenever I was growing up. So yeah, these girls are going to be getting their hands dirty here pretty soon.
That's awesome. Well, listen, last question, Clint. What let's say there's people with a couple of rentals around the country, and they're not happy with their current property manager. They want to find a better one, maybe more professional, bigger. What's the best way to find them? How would they go about interviewing prospective managers? What are the kind of 2 or 3 steps they should take to do it?
Well, I would talk to other investors that use that property manager. Most of our clients that we have been with us for a very, very long time. One of my larger clients that does lots of tax sale stuff. We manage close to 100. I wouldn't say over 80 to 100 homes. For him, he's been with me since 2005, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that kind of client retention, I think that speaks for a property manager. You want to whenever you're interviewing your property manager, you have to ask about experience. If it's someone that has just opened up and is a property manager as of a month ago, it's just really, really difficult to have the know-how and the proper systems in place.
Yeah.
Don't be the guinea pig that they learn on. You really want someone with experience. The reality is, I've watched it here in Indianapolis. Property management companies come and go. There's a handful that have been here, for as long as I have.
Mm-hmm.
We all know one another, and we're all pretty legit. But there's tons that come and go. So really, really, ask about the experience. Also, the really good ones are, the fee structure is very similar amongst the really good ones. So if you see someone that is offering half of what we charge to manage a property, something's up, because
Mm-hmm.
the profit margins within a property management company are extremely small, and you don't want to learn why that person is charging so little, because those mistakes can be drastic. We had a guy that was undercutting management companies here in Indianapolis, and all of us lost a few customers, to this particular person, and his fees were crazy low. And I just said, look, there's something's up. Well, there's a federal indictment against this guy now, because he ran off with everyone's rent money and their damage deposits. So, you just got to be really cautious. If it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the reality, behind it. But then, ask about the systems that I talked about. The payment systems with the tenants, the maintenance systems, all of that stuff is very important. Ask about the track record. We have 97% rent collection. We have a very low eviction rate. Ask
Mm-hmm.
about the screening processes. All these systems are very important to keeping your property running the way that it should.
Awesome. A lot of good advice in there, Clint. I appreciate it, and I'm sure our listeners do as well. And so listen, let's wrap it up here. We could talk all day, but where can people reach out to you if they want to get in touch to say hello?
Our management company, you can find us at www.zuluscape.com. That's ZULUSCAPE.com.
Okay.
You can also, reach me at clint@rwaproperties.com is my email address. But
Mm-hmm.
we love talking real estate. You could tell by talking with my business partner a few weeks ago. He won't shut up about it. I won't shut up about it. So, if you want to talk real estate, we're a company that loves to do that. So please reach out. We're at the office all the time, probably too much, but we would love to chat with you about real estate and help you out in any way we can.
All right. Well, I really appreciate that, Clint. I'll get those on the show notes. And thanks again for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks so much, Colin. Appreciate it.
So there you have it, folks. That was show 27 with Clint Wetherill in Indianapolis, Indiana. So a really interesting guy. Sounds like a fantastic property manager. I would be very happy to own a property with Clint managing it, and I'm actually in the process of trying to do just that right now. So, I've kissed my fair share of property management frogs over the years. I mean, the majority of them are very ordinary or borderline bad. I mean, if you find a great property manager, you really should hold on to them, treat them well, treat them with respect. And it is worth the effort just to find a great property manager, to make the effort to speak to lots of them, to ask them about their experience, to ask them for those references, ask them how many doors they've got, how long they've been doing it, what software they use to deal with tenants, what software they use to communicate with investors, how many staff they have, how long those staff have been with them. These are all great questions to ask and worth doing. So if you're with a really ordinary property manager now, I mean, you don't need to stay with them forever. If they're sloppy with the payments, if they're not communicating with you, I think that's the biggest gripe most investors have with property managers, is that they're not very good communicators. And there's no real excuse for that with the amount of software available right now to talk to people and give people automated, updates and reports. There's really no excuse for it. So double check your property management agreements. Double check, if you have spreadsheets where you keep your income and expenses from your rentals. Make sure you dig into those property management reports and dig out the maintenance expenses that are coming out. Look at those and how they've been trending over the last few quarters and few years, and see if there's stuff you can nip in the bud there. Too many people just leave the property management statements in their email, maybe put the net amount they receive in a spreadsheet, but don't really dig into it. I mean, you should dig into it. I personally dig into all my property management statements every single month. And if there's something unusual there, I'm on it. I'm calling or emailing somebody for clarification on what's going on. I mean, recently, for example, I saw a couple of people, checking a water heater, multiple months. And this was like a 23-year-old water heater. Well, I mean, I got on the phone and said, why are you continuously repairing a 23-year-old water heater? I mean, use your brain and just replace it. It's just, I'm paying the cost of one anyway by just trying to patch it up. So keep an eye on stuff like that. Don't assume your property managers are brilliant and know everything and take all the best decisions all the time, because they don't. They don't at all. And just keep an eye on that stuff, okay? But anyway, enough rambling. I thought it was a good conversation with Clint. I think he's a lot of wisdom there and some good actionable tips, which I hope you can pick up from, and make sure you check the show notes for his contact information and a summary of some of the main things we went through. And as always, if you're enjoying these podcasts, please do take 30 seconds out of your day to leave me a 5-star review or a quick review, a quick rating on whatever podcast app you're using. And if you like these, I'd really appreciate if you could share a link with your friends and family on social media, or check out the website, colininvestments.com, COLIN investments.com. And that's pretty much all from me today. Thanks as always for your kind attention, and I will be back very soon with show 28. But until then, take care, guys. Bye bye.